Welcome back in. It is another episode of Fifth Avenue Faceoff. How are you, friends? Chris Mack and 93.7 The Fan with you. And don't forget, if you haven't already, do us the favor of making sure, and do yourself the favor of making sure you follow Fifth Avenue Faceoff inside your Odyssey app. Best way to get the show as soon as it's ready, whenever we have a new episode ready. During the regular season, that's going to be 2-3 times a week. During the offseason, postseason, which the Penguins weren't involved in, and the offseason, once a week, maybe twice, depending on what's going on as events warrant. All you got to do, download your free Odyssey app, AUDACY. Find Fifth Avenue Faceoff. That's not hard to do. You type in Fifth Avenue Faceoff, and then follow the podcast. It's a little tick mark right up there in the upper right-hand corner of your Odyssey app, or however you get your podcasts. Honestly, we're not picky. Follow the show, subscribe, like, rate, review in iTunes and Google Play, Spotify, Pandora, however, Stitcher, you may get your podcast. Go ahead and join the fun with Fifth Avenue Faceoff. I think you're going to really like today's episode. We got Eddie Olczyk of the NHL on TNT, of course, 1994 Stanley Cup champ with the New York Rangers, and former Penguins color commentator as well. And don't forget his stint as head coach as well. So plenty to talk about with Edzo today, including, well, what he thinks as we record this, as we get ready to perhaps wrap up the Stanley Cup final between Vegas and Florida. We will have a first-time Stanley Cup champ, regardless of who wins the series. Vegas up 3-1 on Florida as they get ready to play a Game 5. What we've learned from this postseason and how it may affect the Pittsburgh Penguins, what Kyle Dubas' checklist should look like as the draft quickly approaches and then free agency. And we'll look back at his experiences, both on the ice, in the booth, and behind the bench. So with no further ado, there he is, live from Las Vegas, the legend himself, Eddie Olczyk. Eddie, I know that the off days are few and far between that don't involve travel these days, so thanks for making the time. We appreciate it.
Chris, always great to see you, and it's nice to be on with you. And when you're sitting there saying live from Las Vegas, I was waiting for a 5 minutes, 5 minutes, Sinatra, 5 minutes,
This is the part where Dean Martin stumbles out and offers everybody a drink.
Yeah, the old Rat Pack, exactly. So good to be with you. I hope you're doing well in the family as well.
No, we're doing well. Thanks for asking. And before we get into everything, and I want to ask you some Penguin specific stuff later, what maybe we've learned from this postseason and this Cup final in particular. I just want to say, because I've talked with lots of people about this over the last year plus, since Turner got the rights or half the rights to the NHL package. The job specifically you and Kenny and Panger and Jackie have done on the last couple of weeks of action, the job Turner has done, the studio show, in my opinion, is the best thing in hockey right now. I just want to say that nobody quite knew what to expect when ESPN and Turner split the rights a little over a year ago. But you guys have hit the ground running, and it's only gotten better. So pass it along to everyone at Turner, to Kenny, like I said, Darren, Jackie, and everyone in the studio team as well. You guys are doing a phenomenal job covering this.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris, and the long-lasting relationship with ESPN and TNT because of the NBA package, right? Mm-hmm. And they've had the working relationship and the shared venture together to put on NBA. And then this year, last couple of years, I guess I should say, for us on hockey, and, a lot of familiar faces on our side, a lot of chemistry, working together, myself and Keith Jones in the studio. And then we got Jonesy out of the studio for a couple of years. And next thing you know, he's president of the Philadelphia Flyers on the hockey operations department. So, and then working with Kenny, as I have over the years, and it's been a smooth transition. I mean, change is always scary. It doesn't matter, what line of work it is, or you pack up and move as a family. I mean, there is pause for cause every once in a while, but I think once we got into it, we just kind of got into a rhythm, and it's fun. I don't think we take ourselves too seriously. At least I don't. I think I like to think that I do the games with humility. And if I make a mistake, I, give a -1 on Olczyk again, and then you move on. I think fans appreciate honesty and opinion
Yeah.
and humility. And it's been a lot of fun. Look, at the end of the day, I think we all know is that the majority of the great hockey fans, regardless if your team is involved or not, they're there to watch the games, and we're there to entertain them and hopefully teach them a little bit. But at the end of the day, we want, and I learned this from the great Doc Emmerich, is that when I'm doing the games or in the booth, is that we're there to tell the story, not be the story. And I think sometimes in a lot of different situations, people like to become the story, and then it just, it loses its luster. So appreciate the kind words, and hopefully we're going to be able to finish up strong here, whether it's in Game 5 in Vegas or we get back on a plane again and head back to Florida and see a Game 6. But it's always fun to be a part of the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, for everybody, for those that are just jumping on board late in the season, Tuesday night, depending on when you're listening to this episode of Fifth Avenue Faceoff, Tuesday night in Vegas, Faceoff just after 8 o'clock on TNT. And as Eddie mentioned there, if there's a Game 6 Friday in Sunrise, it'll be on TNT as well. And if there's a Game 7, if the Panthers can push it that far, it'll be Monday the 19th from Vegas.
Chris, I got to say this. I got to just let everybody know, it's been really, really tough to be in Vegas for the first couple of games and be here for 6 days and then fly all the way to Florida and get a little horse racing in between at Gulfstream Park had a group of 30 of us in between games 3 and 4, and then fly all the way back to Vegas for another 3 days. Somebody's got to do it. And I guess both my hands have been up on this matchup, and I'm going to need it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to need a vacation from last couple of weeks. Yeah, exactly. So
that's why we love you, Edzo, that hard hat mentality. You take your lunch pail to Vegas and Florida with you.
Yeah, that's about all I have left. That's about all I have left right now, just for the full disclosure.
Well, before we get into what we take away from this postseason and this series specifically, and your thoughts on the Penguins and where they're headed now that Kyle Dubas is in charge, I want to go back a little bit. And for the younger crowd, I want to remind them of what it was like. I mean, I can't believe it's been 20 years, but it's been 20 years since that spring, summer of 2003, when you made the jump from the booth next to Mike Lang and Fox Sports Pittsburgh to behind the bench.
Yeah.
And just what that was like to make that jump. You talk about how hard change can be, but how you need to be ready to embrace it and take it for what it's worth. Just what was that like, especially given the state the franchise was in at that point, the state the league was in, really?
Yeah. I mean, I had been the legendary Mike Lang's partner for 2 years. And then that third year, just started thinking about, maybe there was going to be an opportunity that to get into coaching. And look, I flat out, when I went in and interviewed with Craig Patrick and then eventually, obviously, with Mario, I went in to apply for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton job in the American Hockey League because we had no coaches in the organization, period. We had nothing in Wheeling. We had nothing at the NHL level, and we had nothing in the American Hockey League. So when I went in, I wanted to go to Wilkes-Barre. That was my goal, is that the interview process, and that's what it was. And next thing you know, the second call came from Craig, and I had known Craig for a long time. I mean, 20 some years when he was with the Olympic team in 1980, and then eventually the National Hockey League. And and I think that they were looking at it as, okay, well, we're going to start a rebuild here, and we're going to get rid of anybody that had any marketability and trade value, and we were going to start from scratch, and it was going to be a way to build for 5 years down the road. And I look back and I know that it made me a better hockey person. I know it made me a better broadcaster. Was I disappointed I wasn't able to see it through? Yeah, absolutely. Is there still a part of me inside of me that would love another crack at some sort of a hockey position? 100%. But I think in that situation, it was built through the draft. And that's what we did, right? We had the third overall pick back there in that draft in 03, the 03-04 season. And, we moved from third to first. We got the Flower. We had no goalies. And then the next draft was us in Washington, right? It was Ovi and Gino. It was Ovechkin and Malkin. And we ended up getting the second pick. And we had no centers in the organization. So we got Gino. So we were building it the right way after moving a lot of our assets out. And I learned so much about the game, so much about the business, so much about the management part. And then the next year we had the work stoppage. And I always look back and wonder, like, what would have happened if we would have played and not had the whole season be canceled. And next thing you know, it's us in Anaheim with in the so-called lottery, and it's us and them, and Sid's on the table, and all of a sudden you go Flower, you go Gino, and then you got Sid the Kid, right? So you look at what happened and how it kind of all went down. So our plan was aborted. It was expedited once we got Sid. And next thing you know, we were spending money, and getting free agents and bringing in guys like Ziggy Palffy and Sergei Gonchar. And, I could just go on and on. John LeClaire.
Right.
So, when I look back at that and just see the plan and then how quickly things changed, is that I know we did it the right way. And I look at full disclosure, and I've said this publicly, so I'm not stepping out of line here, is like, I wish we would have been a little bit more patient when we got Sid. But we didn't, and things ended up working out quite well for the Penguins, and obviously the rest is history. So, I would never trade it in for anything. Do I wish I would have had a chance to, go to the minors instead? Looking back, how would things be differently now?
Yeah.
I guess it's always easy to say, but I enjoyed the experience. I love Pittsburgh. I was there for I was there 3 years as a broadcaster, just, 3 years total calendar-wise coaching. And then obviously I played there for less than 3 years. So I spent a lot of my time in the Burgh. I love it there. Would never trade in that experience. And like I said, I think I'm better. I'm a better hockey person having gone through that experience, both the positives and obviously the negatives.
I guess having that experience, like you said, and the hope that maybe there would have been a little more patience, even though the lottery ball bounced your way. Is that kind of what feeds or fuels maybe some of that desire that if something came about, an opportunity now, that you would be interested in it? Like the opportunity to get back at building something, especially.
Yeah. I mean, do I wake up every day and go on the World Wide Web thing and see what jobs are available around the league or in other, in different levels, not only the National Hockey League? No, I don't. But, I'm always talking to people, and you're always hearing things, and you communicate. And I've interviewed in a lot of different places and talked to people, and some have gone very long and some haven't, and that's okay. But yeah, I think that does, from kind of how things came to an end in Pittsburgh, Chris, is in coaching. I think there always is that desire to want to be a part. I mean, I love working with young players. I enjoyed, that part of it, being in there, correcting when things aren't going well, and watching everybody enjoy the fruits and celebrations of when you're on the right side of it. And, it's ultimately, being a part of a team again. And I've been a part of a team with NBC forever, 16 years, and working with the people that I have, and then obviously now with TNT. So, I just, if something, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. If it doesn't, that's okay. I'm very much at peace. I've been through a lot personally, as you know, with my battle with stage 3 colon cancer. Hard to believe. I just hit my 5-year anniversary, which is unbelievable. Where I've been.
Congratulations,
5 years,
man. That's
clean
great
and clear. Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, we've all been struck by it, but you have as well, and your family. And I just think that it's knowing where you were, where you are, and where you're trying to get to. And if somebody is willing to chat, I'm certainly all ears and be willing to listen. But I'm very much at peace. I love what I do. I work for incredible people, not only on a national side, but also I made the big move last year to do games in Seattle after being in Chicago for forever. And I never thought that I would ever leave the Blackhawks or leave the booth in Chicago. But, just sometimes things happen, and you make decisions, and you keep your head up and proud of what you've accomplished and what you've done, and you just forge ahead. So, but we'll see. If something happens, great. If not, then that's okay. And I still talk to a lot of people. A lot of people still, value kind of my thoughts behind the scenes. And, I'd like to, in a lot of these situations, I would prefer that be able to be like an ostrich and go ahead and bury bury everything in the sand and just kind of let things materialize as they organically should. But the world we live in now, just conversation and people knowing, and it's just, you just kind of deal with it. So I've enjoyed the processes I've been through, and again, you get to meet a lot of people, and you never know. Maybe today is not the day, but who knows? Maybe in 730 days from now, somebody picks up the phone and goes, you know what, I want to rekindle what happened or what started, and maybe it happens. But I'm in a good place right now.
You can tell me to buzz off, but I know Penguins fans will be mad at me.
I will tell you that I am not discussing anything.
Okay.
I have too much respect for all the different people involved in processes, and
I respect that. From
thank
you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I figured that might come up, so I'm gonna respectfully get to it before you do, and just say that I talk to a lot of people all the time, and I respect the process on both sides, and I wish everybody involved in a lot of different places that I've been associated with over the course of the last year the best of luck. And I'll always be tied to Pittsburgh, that's for sure. I mean, there's no doubt that like I said, with my ties as a coach and as a broadcaster, and obviously as a player, and somebody that I think tried to carry the torch and represent is probably the word I'm looking for. Represent the city of Pittsburgh with my ties there. I will continue to do that regardless of what I'm doing. And I always wish the Penguins the best of luck, and I wish Kyle and his staff the best of luck. And it was very foreign, this playoff run here, to not have the Penguinos in the playoffs. But hopefully they can figure it all out. And hey, it's tough. This is a tough league, Chris. This is, just get in. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is what this is all about, is it not? It's like, just get in, because if you get in, you see what's happened, not only in the NBA, but also in the National Hockey League playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, both the Miami teams, the Heat and the Panthers, both, a play-in team in Miami's case, and the Panthers getting in the final week of the season, just sneaking in past the
and I will say this, and I don't mean to interrupt you again.
No, you're good.
Another minus on Olczyk, but think about it. Think about it. That week, the last week of the regular season, right? The Pens, they had it was right here. It was right. It was in their hands, right? And here, and all of a sudden now you probably got to look, you got to probably look and go, holy geez, I mean, it just happens. It's just the reality where Florida gets in and they don't, and Florida could easily be, where the Penguins are right now.
Well, and the butterfly effect of that Blackhawks game at PPG.
Right.
And if that game doesn't go that way, the Penguins might be in the playoffs, and the Blackhawks might not be the future home of Connor Bedard.
Yeah, you don't know, right? And what happens in Florida? And what happens in Florida, right? With the massive trade, and I think you look at Matthew Tkachuk, and the legend of Matthew Tkachuk continues to grow. But here's a guy that's done it in regular season, back-to-back 100-point seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just call it what it is right now. People said, well, this is an equal trade, and, let's see how it evolves. No, look at it. Florida won that trade hands down. It doesn't matter what happened moving forward. Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, they didn't make the playoffs. Huberdeau was complaining about Daryl Sutter, okay, so he didn't make he got knocked out. He got swept the year before when he was in Florida. So whose fault was it? Was it that? So at some point here, you got to take some responsibility. But right now, in my opinion, I don't think it's even close. The best player in that trade is Matthew Tkachuk, and will be, regardless of what happens moving forward. But again, they were what? This much, Chris? This much from missing the playoffs?
That close.
And here they are, and they're this far away from winning the Stanley Cup.
So what have we learned through these playoffs, especially the Cup final, about what, because people say this all the time, but it's true in every major professional sports. I think it's true in college athletics, high-level college athletics. Everything's a copycat league, copycat game. People are going to try and copy and replicate what Vegas has done, what Florida has done. I don't know how easily replicable either one of these blueprints is, though. Vegas, with the size that they have in front, but still the ability to skate. Florida, the speed and the grit, but also the ability to make things happen with their size from time to time. I mean, these are two highly These are two very difficult things to duplicate if you're looking to duplicate what the way Florida and Vegas have found success.
Yeah. I mean, I think both teams have some heaviness to them. And I think that would probably be the thing to me is that the way the game is going and how large and in charge these athletes are now, Chris, you got to have it. And you got to have it over the possibility of what? Quick math here, 4 series times 7, 28 games. Like you might need it for 28 games. And it might not just be 18 skaters and 2 goalies, as we've seen. You might need 25 or 26 guys. So depth on both these teams. Florida is a little different because I didn't think they were, I think they're a good defensive team. I like a couple of their defensemen.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the strength of their team. But they did find a way to get into the playoffs. And then Bob, who wasn't even, Sergei Bobrovsky wasn't even their goalie to start the playoffs. He catches fire and then he does what he does. And look at if you get it. And Penguin fans seeing it right with Matt Murray. When a guy gets on a heater, it don't matter. Like, and all of a sudden now, Matt Murray, Kyle Dubas trades for Matt Murray from Ottawa to Toronto because he's had a relationship with him, and obviously that hasn't worked to this point. So just sometimes, the lightning in a bottle thing. But I would look at heaviness and the ability, the transition game going from defense to offense. I think is where you talk about copycat. I think that's such an important part of these games. And look, take goaltending out of it because if you don't get it, you're not winning. Let's call it what it is. You're not winning in a National Hockey League playoff. So I think heaviness, some size, and the ability to transport the puck, whether it's individually or it's that quick transition game from D to offense. But the last thing I will say is that it is important, and I think both these coaches have done it, and Bruce Cassidy's done it pretty much since he got to Boston and now. And then Paul Maurice has been around 1,000 years, and he's done it in different areas, is that the man behind the bench, the coach is behind the bench, you have to be able to change. You have to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
Not only on the fly, but in season as well. And that, to me, in a series as well, you need to be able to, it just can't be the same stylistically or the schematics. You got to be able to change and adapt. And I think we've seen that with both of these coaches in this playoff run.
So do you think we've seen enough of that from Mike Sullivan over the last couple of years? Because we all know that his preference is to have speedy defensemen, great puck handlers who can carry the puck out of the zone and create their own transition offense.
Right.
You alluded to that earlier, transition offense. But in this league now, with the size and the speed that most teams have, it can be difficult to carry your own transition offense out of your own zone through the neutral and then maintain possession into the offensive zone. It's become, I'm not going to call it dump and chase, but it's become much more about puck retrieval, or as much about puck retrieval as puck possession. Have you seen Mike Sullivan sort of ride that wave as things transition?
Oh, I do. I mean, I think especially when you have the depth that he has had, and again, past tense, that he has had, and when he has had the ultimate success, and Sully is one of the elite coaches in the National Hockey League. And I think that when you look at the moves that, Ronnie Hextall and Brian Burke had made, and Sully too, he had a voice of getting a little bit more, I think the word he used was heaviness on the back end. When you look at the transformation from, 2 regular seasons ago to last year. Now, unfortunately, when you get guys banged up and, just you can't control a lot of that. But, he does have that ability. Could there be more change? You could look at it, right? Like it's been a while since the Penguins have been able to go on a run. So, I think anything, you look at everything. You look at anything as, how can we take that next step? How can we get back to where we are? And even when you get guys that are a little bit older, Chris, and, the depth part of it, for me is when I look at what's gone on in Pittsburgh here the last couple of years, like that's been one of those things that in my opinion, that his weighted the team down, is that just, you can only ask Sid and Jake to do so much. Like
Yeah.
you need those guys. Now, is it about scoring? No, it's nice if they can chip in, but you got to have guys to be able to go out there that can do the penalty killing, but also can change the momentum in a hockey game. Like they can go out there and have some good territorial time out there, and so again, that comes with being able to adapt. But you got to have players got to do two things. Chris, doesn't matter if you're Sid or you're a fourth line guy or a seventh defenseman. You got to do two things. One, you got to accept. You got to accept your role. And two, you got to go out there and execute it. End of story. It's all about the big picture. And when you've had success like the Penguins have with the core guys that they've had, it's only about one thing. And it's been a while since they've been able to really get close and make a run at the Stanley Cup.
So what do you think Kyle Dubas' first priority could be or should be this offseason? Because Tristan Jarry is a free agent. Kyle has shown that he may have a propensity for going with more of a goalie tandem than just a single guy. But
just find a guy that's going to be able to stay healthy and stop the puck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like again, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I mean,
no, it's exactly what the problem is.
Yeah, right. So and having talk with the past regime, and having conversations with Sully when we would do Penguin games, on TNT. Look, when you dissect, I like to think that I can dissect coach speak as well as anybody. That's a huge, that's a huge part of it. And that also as a player is when you can play on your toes and you're not, thinking about, okay, well, geez, if I pinch in here, and again, this is processed all in a split second, but
right.
If I try to keep a puck in, I give up a 2-on-1. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to pull that thing out of my net, and then all of a sudden we're playing behind the eight ball. But it'll be look at it, it will be interesting, and that's a big part of it, because look, when you look at the teams that, in my opinion, are on the come, they didn't make the playoffs, and that is Ottawa and that is Buffalo. If the last time I checked, I don't think either one of those teams made the playoffs this year. So when you are on the outside looking in, the question would be, and I would just assume this, if you're Pittsburgh, you're sitting there going, okay, well, who are we going to knock out?
Right.
Like who is taking a step back, and how can we go ahead? And again, it's so close, right? We understand that. And then you look at, okay, well, we're one of, I just named two other teams. So we're one of three teams here that think, okay, well, then what two or three teams are taking a step back? Now you want to sit there and go, well, the teams that made it at 8 and 7 are the bubble teams. Okay, maybe Florida takes a step back, okay, but there's a process of elimination here. So there's a lot of things that go on, and it's not, even if you're fully healthy and, you find a guy to stop the puck and stay healthy there, and Sully pushes all the right buttons and somebody steps up and it goes from a 8-goal scorer to a 20-goal scorer. It's not going to be easy. So, and then you got the contracts and, all those things happening. What are you going to do with Jake moving forward? I mean, these are, like, it's, Kyle's in a spot. Like, he wasn't a pressure cooker in Toronto. Look, I played in Toronto. I have, again, before social media and all the talk shows and the World Wide Web stuff. But, Kyle's coming into a situation here where, like this, the expectations that are one thing, and that's to get back into the playoffs. And, he's got his hands full. There's no doubt about it. But, for them is, like I said, talking about depth and maybe getting a little heavier and trying to manage and figure out the salary cap, because you got a big decision coming on Jake. And, look at Jake Gensel, to me, talk about it a lot. I mean, Sully talks about his IQ and people look at it and go, well, he's playing with Sid. It's not easy to play with Sid. It's not easy to play with the best players that have played in the National Hockey League for 15 years. Like he has helped Sid. I don't think there's any doubt about that. My conversations with Sid and the respect that he has for Jake Gensel, I'll just say it right now. Jake Gensel is going to be north of a $7 million player. And look at his numbers in the playoffs, Chris. I mean, and add that into a decision that has to be made, whether it's in the Berg or somewhere else. Like
what do you say though, Eddie, to people? And I've had people throw this back at me when we talk about Jake and his long-term potential here in Pittsburgh or anywhere for that matter, that because of his size, he's not going to be able to last in longer playoff runs in the style that we're seeing now in the postseason. You just talked about how heavy it is.
I don't buy it. Well, I mean, you could look at a couple of teams that have won here the last couple of years and look at the size of some of their players, and look at, do you want to have 5 or 6 guys, in all due respect to Jake Gensel, built like him, 5 or 6 guys that are playing in your top 9? No, you don't. But it's okay if you have guys that maybe are a little smaller in stature, but you do have heaviness around them, and it's a different look. Instead of facing fastballs all the time in a 3-game series for the Buccos. And how about those Buccos? Let me just say this:
first place Buccos to you. Eddie.
I know that. I know that. I with Doc Emmerich and my brother, with my brother Ricky, who is a diehard Pirate fan and has been since the mid '70s. And getting a chance to know Shelty and have a dinner with him in St. Louis a bunch of weeks ago when the Buccos were in St. Louis. I just think that Doc is over the moon. So I want to thank Shelty and the Pirates, because my conversations with Doc over the course of the last couple of months have been outstanding. He's in a great mood.
Flying high.
He tells me they've won 7 in a row, and so I want to thank Shelty and the Buccos for the run that they're on. But look to me, I'm all in on Jake. It is tough to find a guy like that. He can play in any situation for you. His numbers bear out, and look at it and go, without any question, without any hesitation, he's north of a $7 million player. And look at, all you need is 2 teams. And if you get 2 teams, how high does he go? And I think he has earned that. Now, whether it's in the Berg or not, I have no idea. But I think that that's another decision, obviously, in the forefront, for Kyle here moving forward.
All right, before I let you run, because I've kept you long enough, I do want to ask one more question about Sid, because you know him.
Sure.
How much longer do you think he plays? Because I increasingly, as he gets older, get Tom Brady style vibes from Sid, in that as long as he's healthy enough and at the top of his game, he's going to want to continue to play, and he wants to continue to play in Pittsburgh. I have no reason to believe he'd want to be anywhere else. So with all that being said, is it 2 more years? He plays out the contract. Is it 5? Is it 10? Could he play till he's 45 again, to draw that illusion, that allegory to Tom Brady?
Sure.
How much longer does Sid play?
It's a good question. I don't think there's any doubt that he could play well into his 40s if he wants, and whatever Sid wants, we should all be, we should be all good with that. And, he's still at such a high level, but, I think for him, it's that help, right? Like, just to, last time I checked, and I think this is the PC way to say this, because I know that's the world we live in now, is that mother and father time are undefeated. Okay. Let's just make that perfectly clear. I think for him, the health and, the love, and just to see his body language and to see him in the locker room, or just, the way he carries himself. And, it's just, him understanding himself and knowing where he is and where he's, where he was and where he is and where he's trying to get to. So would I be shocked if Sid is, hitting, the ripe old age of 40, that young age of 40, and going, nah, you know what? Yeah, I feel pretty good, and I can still be a difference maker, which, the hands, the head, the eyes, well, not for me anymore, because I got like 9 pairs of glasses now, but, that is always going to be there for Sid, because he just breathes a different air, Chris.
Right.
But even as great and powerful as a skater, the recovery aspect isn't as quick. And for a lot of those type of guys, they're not used to that. And, so the legs will be kind of the first to really slow down. He's going to be able to see it. He's going to want to get there. And now I'm talking, when I mentioned 40, I mean, it may be 5 years after that. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I just believe is that, he can be an impactful player in the National Hockey League for at least 5 more years. And hey, if he wants to play till he's 45, and I'm still broadcasting, I will take great pride and honor to have been around him as his coach his first year in the National Hockey League, and then all of a sudden, here we are, so many years later, and 2029 or whatever the year is going to be, and sit there and say, this guy is he's still doing it and still puts fannies in the seat and still representing the city of Pittsburgh.
So where's the summer taking Eddie Olczyk? Are you back out to the Pacific Northwest, back home to Chicago, a cottage somewhere near a quiet pond, your toes in the sand somewhere? You got to think about this. The season's over in the next few days.
Yeah, no and no on the sand and the cottage. I'm not, I'm the opposite of that. I like my couch. I like that my television can fire up on the Horse Racing Network, and I can fire up my ExpressBet account. And you ever wear out an app on your phone? I'm in a process of doing that in a couple of weeks for my horse racing, my love of and passion of pucks and ponies, especially this time of year. But I'll get back to Seattle. But my son Tommy, who spent a lot of time in the Berg and played for the Pittsburgh Predators, went to CV with my son Eddie, went to Chartiers Valley, and he's getting married at the end of July, so that's pretty much forefront on the docket. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, Chris, but I am a grandfather 2 times over. I don't know if you know that yet, but yeah, exactly. I know. I have my granddaughter. Audrey Marie will be born. Her birthday will be on July 7th, so 7/7. She'll be 3 years old, and then my namesake, another Eddie Olczyk, God forbid. Eddie Olczyk my grandson will be 2 on 9/9. So my granddaughter was born on 7/7.
Look at that.
My grandson was born on 9/9, and now my dad, who's still alive, the real Ed Olczyk, me, another Eddie. My son, Eddie, and then his son, Eddie. So we still have a generation of 4 Eddie Olczyk. So I'm thinking, if I do the quick math here, Chris, so maybe in 17 years, and we'll do it, the 2040 draft.
There we go.
Kyle Dubas will select from Moose Jaw of the Western Hockey League, Eddie Olczyk.
Edzo the fourth.
Yeah, right.
There it
exactly.
is.
Yeah.
Edzo
All different middle names, but all Eddie Olczyks. Yeah,
I love it. As long as there's Olczyks, there will be Edzos. But there's only one Eddie Olczyk as far as the guy who once coached the Pens, and of course always has a special special place in Penguins fans' hearts. We appreciate the time today, Edzo. Seriously, thank you very much for making the time in what is the busiest time of year for you. Again, everybody at TNT, please pass along our regards because you've all done a fantastic job. But we appreciate you making the time today.
Always, Chris. Anytime, man. Great to be with you, and have a good off season for hockey.
We will.
And we'll look forward to see what the Pens do here moving forward prior to the draft, and then post draft, and then free agency on July 1. So hockey's becoming a little maybe a lot like football when
almost
there really is no off season. Which, you know what, for business, it's a great thing.
Yep, it is for all of us who are fans too as well. Thanks again, Ed. So appreciate it, man.
See you, Chris. Thanks.
Great stuff from Eddie Olczyk, and congratulations again to Edzo on the clean bill of health that he's had for going on 5 years now after that battle with stage 3 colon cancer that he mentioned. It's crazy to think where his life and his career have taken him. He mentioned his time with the Maple Leafs up in Toronto, a Stanley Cup championship with the Rangers in '94, which we didn't even get to touch on, his history in the horse racing business as well, from the broadcast booth to behind the bench for the Penguins at such an incredible inflection point for the franchise right around the time of the big lockout that then led to the Sidney Crosby lottery, and then coaching Sid his rookie year and all the crazy additions that were made that offseason. He mentioned them, Palfy, LeClaire, Gonchar, and Gonchar going on to help groom Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin to become the Stanley Cup champions they were just a few years later. And great stuff from Eddie in regards to his past with the Penguins and in the game, and what he thinks the Penguins should move in the direction of going forward now under Kyle Dubas. Definitely a big Jake Gensel fan. We got that vibe, certainly. So as we talk about perhaps what some of the painful moves the Penguins might have to make if they really, truly want to affect some change. We've kicked around names on the air when I was on with Joe Starkey the other day, like Rust and Raquel and even Gensel. Well, Eddie Olczyk tells you, no, Jake Gensel is far too important to Sidney Crosby, especially at this point in his career, to think about moving on from him. It's more about figuring out how much you're going to have to pay him to keep him around. And as he said there, you can talk about what you want your postseason team to look like and what you want the style of hockey to look like, but if you don't have the goaltending, it's not happening. And your goaltending better be healthy. So a big question for Kyle Dubas and the Penguins front office to ask themselves about Tristan Jarry between now and July 1st when free agency opens, and if they want to tie themselves to him for any more than another year or so. And does Jarry think he can get better on the open market? Just takes one team to create a market, right? Great stuff from Ed. So don't forget, make sure you're subscribed and following Fifth Avenue Faceoff inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to watch the show, YouTube is where you go. Search for 93.7 The Fan, and then click on that little notification bell. You'll get notified every time there's a new video posted on the 93.7 The Fan YouTube channel, as well as full episodes in video of Fifth Avenue Faceoff. Obviously, with the draft fast approaching now, the end of the season, and free agency right around the corner, we will keep you up to date on everything that's going on once the cup is secured by Vegas or Florida, and then moving forward as Kyle Dubas really has to step on the gas now and get ready for transition this offseason. Keep it locked in right here on 93.7 The Fan and Fifth Avenue Faceoff.